She laughed. Right there in the kitchen, with my mother's china clinking under her hands, and I felt a hollow ache twist in my chest that I couldn't name yet. I stood frozen, the morning sunlight cutting across her smirk like a knife. I could see her clearly now. Her hair tousled, a flash of lipstick smudged carelessly at the corner of her mouth. And yet, part of me wanted to deny the sting I felt, to pretend this was a joke, some cruel setup that reality would wink away. But the laughter wasn't funny. It was sharp, invasive, and it was aimed at me. "Are you seriously going to wear that?" she mocked, eyeing the sweater I had pulled out for work. Her tone wasn't playful. It wasn't teasing. It was dismissive, dripping with contempt I had never noticed before. Or maybe I had, and I had buried it under years of convenience and love. It's fine," I said softly, feeling my voice catch. I adjusted the sweater, though the fabric suddenly felt foreign on my skin. She rolled her eyes, dragging her hand across the counter and letting it linger on the edge like she was savoring the moment. Honestly, you could dress in rags and you'd still think you're... I don't know, this picture of perfection. It's pathetic. I swallowed. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her she was being cruel, that what she was doing hurt, that this wasn't her usual sarcastic teasing. But the words caught in my throat, trapped by a strange, creeping fear. Later that evening, when the apartment was quiet and the kids were asleep, I replayed the morning over and over in my mind. The laughter, the sharpness, the way her eyes seemed to dart past me, like they were always on someone else. I wanted to ask her about it, to demand clarity, but every instinct warned me that doing so might unleash a storm I wasn't prepared to weather. It started with small things. A text I'd glance at from the corner of my eye, just a glimpse before she'd snatch her phone away. She became suddenly protective of her laptop, insisting she needed privacy, while working late into the night. I told myself it was normal. Everyone needed space, sometimes. I told myself this was paranoia. But deep down, a cold seed had been planted, twisting in my chest. One Friday, her sister, Camille, came over. I hadn't seen her in months. She was vibrant, laughing too loudly, her eyes bright with the kind of warmth that made me think of summers long ago when everything felt simpler. Camille always had a way of noticing small things, like the slant of my shoulders when I was tired, or the subtle crease of worry lines around my eyes. "You've grown," she said suddenly, stepping closer. "Really, you look beautiful." The word hit me like a sudden wind. Beautiful. It wasn't something my wife ever said. She never said things like that anymore, if she ever had. I felt warm bloom faintly in my chest, a blush I tried to hide, but my mind immediately twisted. I could feel her glare before I even looked up. Her face was frozen, her lips pressed tight, a storm barely contained. I caught the way her hand trembled slightly as she set down the wine glass she was holding. For a split second, she looked broken, vulnerable, and then, like a switch had flipped, the mask returned. She laughed, sharp and brittle. "Don't be ridiculous, Camille," she said, voice clipped. "You always exaggerate." But I had seen it. The slip, the flicker of shame, the crack behind the mask. It stayed with me. I didn't understand it yet, not fully. I only knew that something in the dynamics of our lives was shifting, and I wasn't sure how to stop it. Over the following weeks, my suspicion hardened into a kind of quiet obsession. I started noticing patterns I had ignored before. The sudden changes in her schedule, the late-night phone calls she'd hastily end when I entered the room, the faint perfume that lingered in places it shouldn't. I wanted to confront her directly, but part of me hesitated. Part of me wanted proof, undeniable proof, before I allowed the confrontation that would likely destroy everything. Then, one night, I saw the text. I had waited, hidden just outside our bedroom, heart hammering a rhythm that was both terror and anticipation. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced down, caught a glimpse before she turned over, and silenced it. The words flashed in my mind like a strike. "Can't wait to see you again." The room seemed to tilt. My knees went weak. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, to scream until my voice cracked, but I was rooted to the floor. I read again and again, each word a hammer against my chest. My hands shook. My wife, The woman I had built my life around, the woman whose laughter I thought was only ever for me, had betrayed me. I confronted her that night. Her eyes widened, and for a brief moment, I thought I might still be mistaken. Maybe there was an explanation. But the weight of her silence was heavier than any lie she could have spoken. Why? I whispered, my voice breaking. Why would you with him? She looked away, her hands twisted in her lap, a gesture of guilt I had never seen. I don't know, she murmured, barely audible. It just happened. It's complicated. Complicated? I laughed bitterly, tears streaking my face. We built a life together. You made promises. All of that. Was it just a story to you? I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, finally meeting my gaze. Her eyes glistened, and I could see the shame etched into her features. But it didn't reach me. The hurt was too raw, too deep. I had loved her with everything, and now I was standing amid the rubble of that devotion, trying to figure out what was real and what had been illusion. For weeks, the apartment felt like a minefield. Every glance, every word carried tension. I could hear the quietness of betrayal in the way she avoided me, in the way she laughed with friends while I sat on the edge of the couch pretending not to notice. The children sensed it too, though I tried to shield them. My anger mixed with sadness in a volatile cocktail, and I realized that nothing would ever feel simple again. Then, one evening, Camille came over again. The timing was cruelly precise. She caught me alone in the living room, staring at the fireplace that held no warmth. I'm so sorry, she said softly, taking a seat beside me. I didn't want to see you like this. I looked at her, noticing the lines of concern on her face, the subtle tremble in her hand as she reached for my shoulder. And then, something unspoken passed between us. She didn't say anything about the betrayal explicitly, didn't need to, but her words, her presence, were a balm to the chaos inside me. She didn't humiliate me. She didn't laugh at my pain. She saw me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the ache inside ease, just a little. A week later, the confrontation with my wife became inevitable. I had no choice but to speak the truth, to lay bare everything I had discovered. Do you even care? I demanded, voice hoarse. About what you've done. About us. Her silence was a dagger. Finally, she said, I thought you'd understand. Understand? My voice rose, trembling with fury. You think I would ever understand this? That I'd just forgive you for destroying our life? Tears welled in her eyes. For the first time, I saw the woman behind the mask, not the cold, laughing figure who had humiliated me, but a person wrapped in her own mistakes, her own shame. And in that moment, the bitterness in my chest shifted slightly. I realized that betrayal wasn't just about them or me. It was about us, about broken promises and human flaws that no one could fully escape. I left the room, needing air, needing to breathe without the suffocating weight of deceit pressing down. The night was quiet, eerily so, and I wandered the balcony, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere between anger and heartbreak, I felt a strange clarity. The woman I had loved had failed me, but that didn't erase the years, the laughter, the small, tender moments that had once defined us. It didn't erase who I was or who I could become. When I returned inside, my wife was sitting quietly, as if she knew the confrontation was over for now. That word had done their work. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Words felt inadequate, hollow against the enormity of everything that had happened. Days turned into weeks. We navigated a fragile coexistence, conversations careful and measured. I realized that closure wasn't something she could give me or I could demand. Closure was something I had to find within myself. In the quiet moments when the house was empty, when Camille's gentle reminders of kindness and decency reminded me that the world was bigger than betrayal. The final reckoning came not with shouting, not with tears, but with a quiet decision. I gathered my children one evening and told them what they needed to know in simple, honest words. My wife would no longer live in the apartment with us. It was a painful choice, but one that honored the truth and the fragile dignity that remained in our family. She packed her things silently, avoiding eye contact. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt relief. I felt the strange, raw emptiness that comes when a wound finally stops festering and begins the slow work of healing. As she left, Camille stood beside me. She didn't say anything about what had happened, didn't need to. She simply offered a hand, a small gesture of solidarity. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again, like the world was open, like there might be a path forward that didn't hurt so much. I won't pretend the betrayal didn't leave scars. It did, and perhaps it always will. But I also learned something about love, about trust, and about the necessity of seeing people as they are, not as we wish them to be. I learned that humiliation and cruelty can coexist with vulnerability, that laughter can hide tears, and that beauty, real beauty, can come from honesty, even when it hurts. And in that quiet aftermath, standing on the balcony with the city lights flickering below, I realized that I had survived. That betrayal, as devastating as it was, could not define me. I would rebuild. I would love cautiously, but I would love. And I would never again let laughter at my expense go unchecked, for I had learned the cost of silence, and I had discovered the strength in confronting the truth. The house was quieter now, the air heavy with reality, and lighter with the possibility of tomorrow. I knew that the memory of her laughter would linger, sharp and cruel, but it would no longer have power over me. Camille's words, her kindness, and the faint acknowledgement of my own beauty reminded me that life, even after betrayal, could still hold moments of grace. And maybe, just maybe, I could forgive not her, not yet, but the pain itself, and through that, find a way to live without the constant ache of what had been lost.